Hi, and welcome to Conversion Conversations. This is Cameron, and today I am going to be talking about the Transformers role-playing game. The Transformers Tabletop Roleplaying Game by Renegade Game Studios. I did a previous video on the core rules and the adventure that I ran from the back of this, as well as just thoughts about the system. Now I have another product to talk about. We are talking about the first standalone adventure they put out, Transformers: A Beacon of Hope. This came out probably 2 years ago. I finally got around to running it. It takes a little while for me to get players and stuff for the Transformers TTRPG. This adventure takes you basically from level 1 to level 2. It's on sale right now on the website. I think it's $35 for this plus the GM binder. Right now it's on sale for $27. I guess easiest thing to talk about first is the GM binder. I have not used it. I run my games virtually. I have quick access to the rules, but I'll say it does seem pretty competently put together. The first panel, right, if you're holding it, you're gonna hold it out like this. So the first panel, if you're reading left to right, has, conditions, the dice shift ladder, which I guess is kind of handy. It's pretty intuitive. As you shift up or down, your die size gets larger. The part that it helps is when you go from a D12, you go to 2D8 and then 3D6, then the auto success and auto critical success makes sense to me. Some sample difficulties, which again feels pretty intuitive, but I guess it's nice there. This part is super helpful. The spending story points and energon points, those are two mechanics in the game that are there. The energon points are there to help players' characters feel more powerful by spending this resource. The story points are there for the DM to do interesting things. Those are both very helpful. The second page of the screen, second part of the screen, goes about the things you can do on your turn. This is a helpful reference. Again, it feels kind of like once you know the rules, you don't really need this as a reference, but when you're just starting out, it's kind of okay. The combat actions, this is another part that I think is very helpful. Goes through like attack contingency, converting, which I have now officially home ruled this per the rules in the book. Converting from alt mode to bot mode to alt mode, or if you have multiple alt modes, from alt mode to alt mode takes a standard action. Baseline, it feels bad. The players hate that shit. I've been talking about people on Reddit and elsewhere. When I run the game now, I homebrew it so that is one of your free actions. People want to transform, and if it's going to take your whole fucking action to do it, it disincentivizes transformation, and the game is not called Big Robots or Cars, it's called Transformers. The skill list doesn't feel super relevant. It's on people's character sheets. I guess it's there if you need to like pick a skill, but I find it simple enough to just like remember it. But I guess if you have trouble remembering, it's nice. The object toughness, this chart is very helpful. I like that a lot. Give some sample like toughnesses for tests to break certain objects. I think the real helpful part are these next two pages. The first thing is roll perks. I said real helpful. This part is not very helpful. It's there if you need to remember perks, but I feel like this is the thing that if the players don't remember, it's on them, or you go back and you flip through the book for it. There are rules for healings. That is helpful. Here, travel pace is interesting that it's here because this never comes up in the two pre-made adventures I've played. Maybe it'll come up in future ones. Jumping, equipment availability. This equipment availability is actually a miss on my part. Or not on my part, but on the designer's part. The vision doesn't need to be there. Instead, equipment availability, this was their opportunity to explain their really terribly communicated equipment test rules at the beginning of an adventure. You have equipment that you were trained in or qualified in, and there is like this matrix of equipment that you can test for based on these difficulty rolls, but it's a combination of the equipment rating plus any upgrades you get on it, and it really should just like be a bigger table. It feels like they wasted a bunch of space on these perks, and this should have been bigger, more prominent. Fuck, there's like empty space over here. This should have been this entire bottom section. This was a miss. It's the part of the game that annoys me the most. It sucks that the GM, like, I have this, I would probably be using this if it had that information. That last page though, kudos. Character size, obviously Transformers can vary a lot in size, and your relative size affects how you hit each other. So this is a helpful table. The size classes also has descriptions and references. Less helpful, but the size class combat is super helpful. And then exploding vehicle damage, that does come up a good amount, especially if you're fighting Earth vehicles. So, this is, I'd say, fine. The art is really cool if I get it all in there. That is a neat art to look at. It is serviceable, but if this is half the price of the product, if this is $15 or at full price, if this is $17.50, you're better off. There are modular, I have modular GM screens that I can just print off the relevant information I need and put it in there if I need to use it. So I don't view this as much value added. But the adventure itself. So Transformers: A Beacon of Hope. This adventure starts off saying, hey, if you haven't, go run Troubled Waters from the core rulebook. Go run that adventure, get your characters to level 2, and then run this adventure. So it's kind of assuming some familiarity with the game. But what this adventure and Beacon of Hope both failed to do, this is Beacon of Hope. What this adventure and Troubled Waters, which is again the adventure that is at the very end of the Troubled Water. What this adventure and Troubled Waters, which is the introductory adventure, the one that's supposed to teach you the system, fail to do is basically communicate any sort of game structure outside of combat and skill checks. This is what makes the system feel so much like we have Dungeons and Dragons at home. There isn't really a dungeon to crawl through, so it's basically a series of scenarios that you just move the party from one to the next, do a combat, do skill checks, and then move to the next one. And that is really unfortunate. This is a product they're selling, and it is the designer's opportunity to communicate their vision of the game. And this, to me, says their vision of the game is, hey, people pay us $50 for a rule book if it's got Transformers on it. There isn't really a vision here. I get hints and sense of like a Saturday morning cartoon being played out here in its theming and tone, which I like. Kudos there. The tone, I think they did a good job on, but the structure is very poor. So what does this adventure actually do? The first part is just like a little bit of Transformers lore about what the Beacon of Hope is. It's this project to send a satellite into space near Earth orbit to communicate with Cybertron. At this point in time, the Autobots are on Earth. They haven't communicated with Cybertron yet. There are 4 parts. This estimation is very poor. The first part, 15-minute introduction, fine. The second part, 1.5 hours for the rocket, the rocket that the Autobots have getting stolen, fine. Over the River and Through the Woods is a chase sequence. I think it's closer to an hour with like role play and stuff. 30 minutes for like literally just running the checks, which is not really what you're trying to do in the system. And then the fourth part, taking back what is ours, I would give it closer to 4 hours, not the 2 they estimate here. This, I think, was kind of poorly done. The way the adventure works, there's a little flow chart. It is very linear, which there's nothing wrong with a linear scenario, but this is 100% a railroad. You start out, you introduce people to the characters. They defend the project, the Beacon of Hope project. Parts get stolen. Then you determine on the parts that get stolen. You have a chase sequence that affects certain things. And then for part 4, you get those parts back and you stop the Decepticons from their project of building a missile out of those rocket parts to attack the Ark. That being said, your characters don't really affect the outcome of this adventure. You start out, there's some lines for Optimus Prime in here, Blaster, Hoist. You get to like meet some Autobot characters, and this is what I think the game is good at. It's good about, hey, you're playing a Transformer and you get to play with and meet the big characters. And like, that's neat, but that's not really what the adventure should be about. It should be putting the player characters front and center, and I'll explain why it doesn't in a moment. You go in, you get a tour of the rocket facility, then it gets attacked by Decepticons. There is a cool, this part I did like. There is a cool handout at the back, which is talks about, okay, here's the test site and the parts. You have this much power. Where do you put power to help defend things? And then you have a combat yourself while other parts of the facility are being defended. You have a combat in the virtual intelligence room, which has a map. These maps are not available digitally, which is another point of frustration. I do scan this and put it up in a VTT. That was annoying. But basically, some Decepticon goons come in, Blaster is pinned down, the virtual intelligence that is supposed to govern the satellite is damaged and it can't recognize Autobot versus Decepticon, so you have to calm the virtual intelligence down and stop Decepticons. While that happens, the Decepticons steal some information. They have some spy bots that are going to steal some information. This is the first part of the railroad. There's really no state of failure. If you fight off the Decepticons and you kill their spy, which is an interactable, like it's a robot with a stat block in the back of the adventure, so it's possible you could kill it. The adventure is basically just assuming that is impossible, which I don't like. For my players, they did fail to find and kill the spy. There were 2 spies, but it should be accounted for in some way. The end should change based on it. But so the Decepticons steal some parts, depending on how that first part goes, and this information, and they take it back to their base. The combat itself is fine. It's clunky, but it's okay. The next part is this chase, and it is really just a sequence of like 5 checks that the players make, group checks. This was an opportunity to introduce some game structure. This should have been, hey, we know our base is here. We know the signal of the Decepticons is here. Give me a point crawl of exploration that the characters can go through, and depending on what points they go to, then it affects their scenarios that they run into, things like that. This was a big miss. It would have padded out the adventure, but it also would have been a really cool opportunity for role-playing and decision-making, which is why we play TTRPGs. The next part, part 4, is the biggest part of the adventure. Like I said, they said 2 hours. It takes longer than that because combat takes longer than that. I guess just a real quick reminder of combat. Characters have very low HP compared to D&D, player characters included. You might have PCs with 2 hit points at level 1. Therefore, the game assumes you're going to miss most of the time, which is fine, but it also makes combat super swingy, and sometimes it can take a really long time. And that is what happened here. You have a base, which they did not provide any sort of outline map. I was able to put it together. It's basically, I'll put it in post. It looks like this. And it connects these Area 2 check-in with these different areas that are these missile silos, this abandoned missile silo base. And each encounter silo has maybe some stolen parts, depending on what got stolen earlier, which I do like. I want to give thumbs up where they deserve it. And some Decepticons to encounter. You learn here that Soundwave's behind this, and you get to fight most of his cassettes, which I also think is clever and good marriage of narrative and mechanics, where because the characters are weaker right now, they're fighting cassette bots. That makes sense to me rather than putting them up against like Starscream and them. You have these different encounters. I'm not going to go through them all in detail, but some nice maps here. And then you get to the end, this last area, which is kind of walled off, so you have to go this circuitous route. It's possible to shortcut, which I do appreciate. But you get there, Optimus Prime, RC, Hot Rod, and Ratchet come in and fight Soundwave while you fight the cassettes. So I didn't like this very much at all because the player characters are essentially hanging out in the background while the main guys are having their fight. You're doing like a smaller scale fight, which makes sense for the level, but I would have preferred if this was just a project run by like Rat-Bat. Like, take Soundwave out of it completely. Don't put Optimus in it. Have Rat-Bat do this, leading a bunch of cassettes, and have the player characters fight the cassettes. Then the point of frustration gets to the end. If they've recovered all the parts, this last section is that data that was stolen earlier in part 1 or part 2. The Decepticon Soundwave is trying to reprogram it to corrupt it and learn where the location of the Ark is. It doesn't matter what happens here. Failure and success are the same thing. Canonically, the Decepticons don't know, so the book doesn't let that be an opportunity to split from the canon timeline and with something interesting happening. It just is like, if the virtual intelligence is corrupted, it betrays Soundwave, and now it's a bad guy. And it's like, okay, but that doesn't matter. It's the end of the adventure. I guess I could write up a stat block for the virtual intelligence, but they don't even offer that in the book. And if they succeed, they get it back. If they fail, it turns evil, but it doesn't help the Decepticons anyway. So again, it feels like nothing happened here. There's some rewards, which aren't really rewards, and a conclusion at the end. And then there are some stat blocks. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's Beast Box in here, Garboil in here, Laser Beacon here, 6, 7. A Ravage Clone, 8, and Rumble, 9. So there's 9 unique stat blocks in here. Everything you need to run the adventure. Soundwave doesn't have one. Optimus Prime doesn't have one because they're not really meant to be fought. But again, I want help on the structure of my adventures. This provides nothing of that sort. It basically says, okay, the way we play Transformers in Troubled Waters and in this one is you get a call from Optimus Prime and he tells you to go to a mission, you go do it, and that's it. And that is really unfortunate. This was, my players overall enjoyed it. I tweaked some things here, but running this as written was disappointing. I think that I don't recommend this, especially for $30. $30 gets you a lot in the TTRPG space. There are some excellent adventures. There are some excellent systems. What you're getting here are these two things. This looks nice and is okay, and this really doesn't have much value. For $30 is very disappointing. I don't recommend it. As of right now, we're 0 for 2 on the Transformers TTRPG. The base system is okay, but the opportunity to sell the system with superior supplementary material is being missed by Renegade Game Studios. That's it. Thanks everybody for watching. This was a bit of a rant, but we have a winner to announce, which I'm not going to do right now because this is technically too early for me to announce it because there's another day for people to enter. So we'll check that out tomorrow. Well, right now in this video. See you in a second. All right, let's announce the winner of Transformers Generations Legacy United Cliff Jumper and Tarn from the multi-pack. Over here on the left, we have all the comments from the video. Again, if you just wanted to leave a comment, I always appreciate it. You got a thumbs up. But if you entered the giveaway and answered the question of the day, then you got a heart. That's how I kept track of things. Ooh, I do believe I missed one. All right, so let's double check. Transformers collection. I got you now. I did not get them the first time. No. Okay. Awesome. That's why we double check these things. Yeah, so here are all the comments on the giveaway on the left, and then over on the right side we have all the entrants, and we have 38 people that entered. So let's see who our winner is. Oh, I might be a little hungover. Between 1 and 38. All right, let's see. Our winner is number 6. 6 is Z-Stack Zip. Z-Stack Zip, congratulations. Let's find you. Oh, okay. Z-Stack Zip wanted to swap Tarantulas for, yeah, like the Studio 686 mold as Ricochet or stepper would be pretty sweet to get at some point. Congratulations, Z-Stack Zip. You can reach out to us on our various social media. We'll get in contact, verify that you're the winner, and then leave a comment on this video that, hey, I reached out to you via this, and we'll sort it out, and then we'll get them packed up and shipped out to you as soon as we can. Congratulations again. Bye.